Tai Chi standing. Basically from the ground up. So become conscious of the feeling on the soles of the feet, sensation of gravity. Connect to that sensation. And then moving up through the rest of your body. Noticing your knees. Can you relax the knees a bit more? And definitely you want them unlocked. Consciously releasing the abdomen. Hanging the tailbone. That will also bend the knees a tiny bit. So that's where the work starts to really kick in, the physical work. Once we start hanging that tailbone, those knees definitely unlock and are developing those legs, developing that base. The chest is natural or neutral, so it's not puffed out. It's also not sunken. So one of my favorite imageries with that is a bird cage hanging on a hanger. Your rib cage is hanging on your spine. So it's just totally natural, neutral. It's not out, not sunken. Shoulder sitting straight down. Again, nice imagery is the shoulder plane. The shoulder girdle sits right on top of the uppermost rib. And just take a moment to feel the gravity working through your arms and hands, and let the weight of your arms and hands naturally sit your shoulders right on top of the rib cage. And breathing into the belly. Each out breath is a releasing breath. A nice imagery for the back is the shoulder blades slide down your back right into your back pockets. And that famous Tai Chi string, suspending the head from above. And just a quick review on that. Most of you have probably heard before, but want that string the top, yes, but towards the back. If it's just right in the middle and you're hanging out or you're pulling up on the string, it'll tend to raise the chin, which is kinking the vertebrae of the neck. So if anything, we want the chin to drop down slightly and push the chin in back. And the last couple of classes, we talked a fair bit about opening up the back of the neck and the lower back. So you want a sense of pushing the chin back to expose the back of the neck. A less muscular way of doing that is if you imagine the string, the top of the head towards the back, and that will create a natural rotation where the chin will not come up. If anything, it will drop down just a tiny bit. So the string at the top of the head towards the back. Or another imagery, a different imagery, is imagine the crown of the head floats directly up to the sky. It pulls the head straight up. All the while, the tailbone hangs heavy with gravity. So you get an equal and opposite stretch to the spine, opening up the spine. The simple way of putting all that is you hang out. Be conscious of letting the weight exit freely through the legs and feet. And let's start with some center orientation. Mind and breath resting in the abdomen. Very conscious of the out breath. So again, breathing in, the belly expands. Breathing out, the belly empties. Consciously using the out breath as a releasing breath. Those of you with more experience, it's not just abdominal breathing, it's the whole torso. So in the beginning, we usually just talk about expanding the belly when you breathe in. You actually want to expand the whole area. So if we touch upon this for a moment, if you imagine a tire tube around your middle, as you know, if you inflate a tire, it inflates equally in all directions, of course. So we don't actually really want to just have the motion here in front. It's through the entire torso. So you imagine a tire tube around your middle. You breathe in, you want that tire tube your torso to expand in all directions equally. If we just touch upon that for a bit more, if you place one hand in front, the back of the other hand on your lower back or a little higher. So let's try a few breaths where you breathe in and you want the expansion to go front and back. So you probably have to really concentrate on getting that backward expansion. So see if you can press your hands away from each other as you breathe in. Breathing in, it's not just the belly that expands, but you're expanding backward as well. And you might find that when you breathe in and you expand the back, that actually drops your tailbone, flattens that lower back for you. So you may have to really concentrate quite hard and kind of physically work at this, because usually this area is quite frozen. It's usually quite stiff and stuck. Many years, many decades of this being tight and frozen, it's not moving freely. For a lot of people, it takes a long time to mobilize and free up the abdomen, even though the abdomen is soft tissue. Even more so, it takes time to release, open, and free the more muscular area of the body and where the bones are. So try not to tense too much or strive too much. Just have the intention, just the intention that when you breathe in, you're expanding back as much as you are forward. And of course, then when you breathe out, it's retracing back equally. Just like if you deflate a tire, it doesn't deflate from one side. There is no front of a tire. It's all the front or it's all the back. There's no front or back. So when you breathe out, it deflates equally. And again, you might find that you're experiencing your body in a way you haven't before, noticing that area back there in a way you hadn't noticed before. Okay. But that's not the whole story yet. We've got this direction as well. So placing your hands on your sides, so your base of your palm is just at your ribs, and your fingers are touching your hip bones. So this might be even more challenging at first. When you breathe in, you want to expand out. We know breathing in, generally speaking, is the expansion. Now we're going to isolate for experience and training, isolate the expansion to outward, sideways. So that'll take, again, some intention, some coordination, and it may seem quite awkward at first because we're not used to opening up the body this way. It's usually quite restricted and quite tight. So breathing in, push your hands out to the sides. And when you breathe out, again, that releases back towards center point, center of your torso. So breathing in, isolating the movement and your focus to expansion outward, sideways, laterally. And when you breathe out, releasing back in towards the body from both directions, both sides, in towards the core of your body. So you might notice that whether it was going to the back, expanding, or now to the sides, that one of those directions or both of those can be quite awkward or quite stuck. So then you're exploring and discovering tension that you didn't realize before. Over time, you want the whole area to release and open and become almost as soft as the belly itself. Okay, now, hand in front, hand in back again. For the next few breaths, as best you can, expand in all directions, like that tire tube. Expanding forward, expanding back, expanding out to the sides. And so that it's not a matter of directions or sides anymore, it's a full circumference, just like a tire tube. Expanding out in all directions equally, and then when you breathe out, retracing back from all directions equally. So this is really the breathing. When we say abdominal breathing, it's really torso breathing. It's the whole thing. This can actually be very therapeutic for lower back problems. And this is actually very stimulating and therapeutic for the kidneys and really all the internal organs. So you're actually gently massaging the bones and the organs and soft tissue, including the muscles back here, in a way that they're not usually touched. Nice long out breath. Okay, good. Any questions with this process? So let's just, again, do the standard standing with the arms just hanging at the sides and just explore this a bit more without necessarily having your hands there. So we just spend another few moments with that 360-degree breathing. Again, it might be a little bit effort-filled at first. It takes some physical and mental effort to get that. That's normal. But try not to tense or strive too much. It's mainly just the intention, the intentional directions. Breathing in, just have the intention of expanding in all directions equally, through your lower back, through your sides. And as you exhale, breathe out, just allowing everything to come back in towards the center point, the center of your core. Briefly check the back of the neck. Maybe that's collapsed a bit out of effort. I'm trying to do something. So open up the back of the neck again. Hang out, shoulders sit, arms hang, weight through the feet. The whole torso region is free to move with the breath. Okay, let's take a little wider stance. A little wider than shoulder width. Toes out, knees out. Hanging from the string. Shifting the weight and turning the hips. Just a quick reminder, we don't really want to shift the weight or throw our body around. Press into one leg to shift the weight and turn the hip. Press down the other leg, press the foot into the ground to turn the hips and shift the weight. Not throwing yourself side to side. If you really hang out, quote unquote, truly hang out, that will have to happen. If you're hanging out, your weight drops through your body to the ground. And if you're hanging out, you can't lean. So it necessitates using the ground to shift the weight and turn the hips. So if you, again, coming back to the very helpful technique of imagining hanging from a string that answers so much of what we want. If you're really truly hanging, you have to press down through the leg to shift the weight and turn the hips. And then coming into serving tea whenever you're ready, try not to lift your arms up. Let your arms gradually, more and more, be moved into the serving tea action. So don't bring the arms up artificially and muscularly. Just slowly allow the arms to be included with your movement and your intention. Hang out, release the belly. Shoulders sit. Become conscious of your tailbone. Can you flatten the lower back? Equal awareness in both arms and both hands. And just like in the standing practice, releasing more and more. Constant process of releasing tension. Noticing tension, releasing tension. Especially in the belly, shoulders. Be willing to not let the arms do anything. We're going to switch the hands slightly. Cloud sailing by. So palms face outwardly. Elbows are dropped. The leading hand is slightly lower than the trailing hand. Again, connect to the legs and hips. So it's not your arms doing this at all. Less and less in the shoulders and arms. Hang out, release the abdomen. And just come back to the center. One hand on top, one hand at the bottom. Cloud hands. Check the alignment of your neck, lower back. Check if you're using your leg, pressing down to shift the weight and turn the hips. Release on each out breath. You want the elbows in front or the elbows rolled forward. In other words, I don't want the elbows really close to the body. That closes the shoulder joints and the flow of chi. So roll the elbows forward. And so through the whole movement, the elbows are well in front of the body, not close in, well in front. Hang out, set the shoulders, release the abdomen. Elbows are well in front of the torso. Remind yourself about that 360-degree breath. Okay. Let's do some Toyus and see if there's any questions with Toyus. So bow stance.
Actually, Brad, can I ask a question about what we just did?
Yeah. Sure.
So what I noticed is like the difficulty in keeping, and trying to move the elbows forward, kind of open one shoulder, but I found that that having the weight of the arm further ahead, like the other shoulder got tighter and tighter.
Okay.
In going, and it like normally in holding, if we do like the tree or whatever, that holding the arm out doesn't create that. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about that.
Yes, that's a very good point to bring up, because that will tend to happen. Also, very much in line with that, what can also easily happen, and probably is happening, when you have the elbows forward, that may also be creating some tension in the long muscles of the back, the mid-back. Just like having your hands out here, way out there, will tend to fire these muscles. So good chance that's happening for everybody or most people as well. And specifically what you're saying, if I just address the shoulder for a moment, to one degree or another, probably bringing the elbows in front is what it's really meaning is you're lifting your shoulder a little bit, generally speaking. So this is actually a good thing to spend a bit more time on, because when you bring the elbows in front, there is a good chance there is some lifting. Just like when we do commencement, we talk a lot about not lifting the arm, but flowing out in front of you. And don't even think about lifting the arm. If you think about lifting, you'll come up. And maybe just a tiny, tiny bit, but it's coming up. So when you brought the elbows forward for cloud hands, probably there was a lifting. Now, in your case, there may or may not have been a lifting. So if there wasn't a lifting, you didn't mention lifting. So we'll say you didn't notice there was a lifting. So perhaps there wasn't a lifting, but just as easily as lifting, what can be happening is a constricting in. So it can be a hiking up and or pulling in whenever we get the arms away from the body. Yes, indeed. So what can be very helpful, a process we've mentioned a few times in the last little while, think of rolling the elbows forward. Let's just do this action right now. Rather than having the hands up, or the hands up for commencement, or hands up for cloud hands, we're gonna do something slightly different with the forearms and hands. We're just going to roll the elbows forward and let the hands fall towards you. Now, if you do this a few times and focus purely on the elbows rolling forward, you're not lifting the elbows up, you're just sending them forward. Now, because we don't have to worry about the hands or the full length of the arms being out there, you may notice that it helps keep the shoulders down. Anybody notice that? Anybody notice the difference when you just send the elbows forward or roll the elbows forward and don't use the rest of the arms? Anybody notice something different with that?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm noticing, like the shoulders stay seated, and there's the shoulder blades widen out, but I'm not feeling a pull down my back.
Right. Anybody else notice that as well? That when you just focus on the elbows going forward or the elbows rolling forward, there's less lifting, less straining, less pulling. Pulling in or pulling up.
That as well, too.
You notice that? So
Yeah.
Don, what was,
Yeah.
Don, what was that?
I noticed that as well.
I think I heard you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, excellent. So this is a very good process because this will be the same for all of us. This is going to tend to happen up or in for all of us. So when we come up now to position for cloud hands, don't worry about where your hands go. Just focus exclusively on rolling your elbows forward. Even if you don't get all the way to here, if it's the shape is slightly different, that's okay. Our focus right now is just rolling the elbows forward, and the lower arm and hands just go wherever they go. And you can even let your cloud hands be very small. The value of this is we're addressing one thing specifically, so we're not going to be worried about having exact shape and everything else being perfect. We're isolating our focus and then noticing what that changes for our shoulders specifically, and how that takes the tension out, either the pulling up or the pulling in. And as Cheryl said, it helps seat the shoulders. It helps seat them and stay seated. So that's all we're concerned about for this moment is, has it made that change to some degree? And then over time, we can have the arms be further out and then even way out here with commencement. And it's the same process. It's the same process. So as we do a bit more cloud hands, see if you can just focus more on the elbows and the dynamic of the elbows rolling forward. And don't worry about from the elbows onward. And for me, I'm noticing, and Cheryl mentioned this as well, I'm noticing when I do that, it opens up my back, helps spread the scapula away from each other. So it's very, very helpful and important process to focus on those elbows. So I'm really feeling the shoulder blades being nicely and gently pulled apart. And again, keeping those elbows rolling forward will seat the shoulders. with more and more experience, this opening that's created in your shoulder joints, eventually you can go directly to the intention of opening the shoulder joints. We need these mechanical adjustments at first, and then you want to track and memorize the feeling it creates. It's the feeling of the shoulders being a little bit more open. And then eventually, the feeling and intention become your way of operating and adjusting. So just through intention, you can open up those shoulder joints without raising them. So right now, focusing on the elbows, and the elbows flowing forward, pulling the shoulders down, elbows flowing forward to open up the back. And elbows are forward, keeps the shoulders from being closed. Hang from the string, release the abdomen, flatten the lower back or hang the tailbone. Okay, good. Any comments with that or any questions with that? Okay. Any specific questions about a move or a process or a principle? Okay, then let's work on brush knee, positioning, mechanics, alignment, and then maybe some further detail with that as well. See how we do. Okay, so you're standing on the back leg, so the brush knee position here. Of course, you want to make sure that that back knee is unlocked. So important things to be noticing right away is your alignment. There can be the tendency to lean back a bit. So we want to sit into that back hip, that back leg. And as we've been discussing a fair bit recently, want to make sure that's not the hip going out to the side, not slipping out to the side. So it's like if you were standing right next to a wall. If I had a wall right here touching my side, when I sit into that leg, stand in that leg, I can't go out at all because I'm standing right next to a wall. So any sitting is going straight back. We also talk about closing the quad. That's the hip waist, with that crease between the thigh and the hip. That crease that closes as we sit. So we talk about sitting, sitting back, or closing the quad. So from the side, sitting back. Again, shoulder sitting. We can take the same technology into this movement, rolling the elbows forward. So this elbow rolling forward, this elbow rolling in its respective forwardness, forward from the elbow. You might find that that, again, draws the shoulders down. Hang out, sitting into the back hip, elbows roll forward. Back elbow rolls right out from the elbow. You might find that opens up your shoulder joint. Let's do that on the other side. Again, feel free to jump in, ask questions about any of these things at any time. Let's work that alignment on the other side. So on the other leg, hang out, sit a little bit into that hip, roll the elbows out, send the elbows expanding outward, set the shoulders, seat the shoulders even more by rolling each elbow in the respective directions. You may notice that really sucks the shoulders right down and opens them. Breathe into the belly. So counter any leaning back by sitting to the hip, and maybe even might feel like you're forward a little bit. I'm going to sit into that hip. Okay, let me know if there's any questions about that alignment. Then taking a step with that forward foot, shifting the weight forward. Hips are square here. Hang out from the string. So you're vertical. That downward, whatever leg is forward, that downward hand is at least one hand width away from your body, away from your thigh. So at least one hand width away and slightly forward. Elbows rolled. Elbows rolled forward. Other side, elbows rolling forward. Hanging out from the string. Spine is dangling, hanging long. And let's do the other side. So once you're here, check a few things out, rolling the elbows away from each other, sitting to the back hip. When you're ready, take a full step on the heel, shifting forward. I'm going to turn sideways here. Notice, again, the tendency is when you shift the weight forward, a bit of leaning, where it's upper body oriented. And I need to make it more obvious so that you can notice it. But it's going to be a normal tendency to have some degree of this. If we're quote unquote really hanging out, that can't happen. Or how we've put it the last class or two is the hips just slide forward like they're on a dolly. And they're just sliding forward. Your upper body just goes for the ride. It's just along for the ride. So we're not doing it with our upper body. The hips slide forward, you're hanging out. Again, that front hand is a hand width or more away and slightly in front. Roll the elbow forward. The top hand, roll the elbow forward. Hang out. Breathe into the belly. Okay, let me know if you have a question. Oh, your cat has a question. No, so it's tail. That's Catherine. I thought that was you with your hand up like this. It was your cat's tail.
No, it was the cat's tail.
I got a question. So let me know if you have a question about this. Now let's move into just a few movements of brush knee.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Brad. Processing speed is slow on both sides.
Okay.
How is it like in trying to roll the elbow forward in the back? So you've got, hand forward and the one that's down. Like I find that creates tension. The more that I roll the lower hand, like the blocking hand forward,
The one that's down by the knee?
yeah, like somehow that's only going into constriction rather than a lengthening.
Okay. Good awareness. Hang on. So this is why questions are so important and so useful, because the answer will be applicable to everything. Everything. If you feel a tightening and a restriction when you try to do that physical movement, that's great awareness. That means we have to stop or change something. So what we're going to stop is stop doing it physically and just do it intentionally. So let the arm just hang where it is. Let the elbow be where it is. Don't do anything physically. Don't try to roll it. Don't try to move it. But you're doing it with your intention. You're flowing the energy in that direction as if you were doing it physically. So here I'm doing it physically, in exaggerated fashion, rolling it forward. You just run the energy. You do it intentionally, not physical at all. And that will start to open up that part of the body. and get a strong path of energy. And eventually your body will release and open and be able to move with that intentional current. As I mentioned, that's very, very useful because that's the approach for everything. If you find that you're doing something and to do that move or that position is causing some reaction in your body or showing real tightness in the body, instead of trying to push through it and make it happen, which is just going to make it worse, it's working against itself, you simply do it intentionally. You just run the energy in that direction and let the body be as soft, relaxed, and open as possible. And then the body is being softened from the inside out, so to speak. So it's a very good point to bring up because you don't want to, oh, that's making me be even tighter. There's even more, I'm just noticing a lot of tension there, or my body's reacting to it by becoming even tighter. We do not want to push that issue and force that issue. We do almost the opposite of forcing that issue. We stop any physical movement and forcing, and we just run the energy current. We run the energy vector. We just do it intentionally. Eventually, the body becomes softer, more open, and it will respond without tightening up. Comments or questions about that? So again, very good point to bring up because, again, that allowed us to talk about the technology or the approach to address any similar situation in any part of the body in any move. Just before we leave that, for another example, let's say I'm in Stork Cool's Wings, and I'm trying to relax this upper shoulder. That's probably going to be the troublesome one, this upper shoulder, rather than the one that's down. Okay, I'm supposed to have this arm up without tightening my shoulder joint, without tightening my deltoid. But I'm feeling that to have my arm up there, I just feel the tightness, and I feel a lot of pull, and maybe I feel some pain. So what I do is I maybe even have the physical shape, structure a little smaller, so it's a little bit more comfortable. I just run the energy. I raise my energy arm. I flow my intention higher and through and allow my arm to be softer and more relaxed. So that's the technology or the methodology for all these things in general. Any questions or comments about that? Catherine, does your cat have a question?
Not at this time.
Okay, so let's do a few brush knees in a row. Go ahead, do it on your own time. Watch me if you like, and let me know if you have any comments or questions. I'll speak a little bit as we do this for some guidance, but let me know if something comes up for you. Hang out first before you move, right? Hang out, relax out. Release the belly. Again, I'll just remind ourselves about the tendency when you're shifting the weight forward. If you take a quick look, again, I have to exaggerate to make it obvious, especially over video here. We're all going to tend to go forward. So the hips simply slide forward. Last class, we also talked about, we featured a lot about weight shifting, releasing down the leg to send you forward. So upper body is just going for the ride. Notice any tendency of lurching forward, leaning forward. That's going to be a normal tendency. So hanging from the string the whole time, releasing the shoulders, releasing the belly. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. You don't have to answer in your own mind. But if you do have a comment about it, definitely jump on that unmute button. Chances are, when you take a step, again, I'll exaggerate. Hopefully the lighting is okay and you can see this. Focus on my shoulders, where my shoulder level is. As you step, there's a pulling up, especially if you're not doing a balance step. The balance step, you can you're going to be saved in just half a second. You're going to be okay. Be saved by the balance step. You're taking a full step. Good chance that there's some level of hiking up and pulling in. Yes. So try a couple more steps and see, before I move on with that, go further with that, see if you can notice that within yourself. It may be very, very, very small, but see if you can notice the tiniest little bit of some sort of shirking in, pulling in or pulling up as you take a step. Or equally so, as soon as you stand into that one leg. Maybe it's even more predominant, simply standing into that leg where you pull up, pull in. So I want you to become aware of that. As soon as you stand up, maybe you notice a tightening in your stomach as you stand up. A pulling in with your neck, pulling in with your shoulders. Probably, it's happening to some degree. So we can draw upon that methodology or technology we did a few minutes ago with running current of intentions or running the direction of intention. So when you notice, for example, when I notice that I stand up, I come up, I'm going to run the energy the opposite way. I'm going to run the energy down. Well, also noticing my stomach pulling in, my shoulders coming up. So I'm going to run the energy the other way, down. You can also physically push your shoulders down, physically release your stomach. That's good. But eventually, everything that we do in Tai Chi and Qigong is all intentional, energetic. It's done by the will, the focus, and directing the energy. But at first, if you notice my shoulders come up, put them down physically. I'm noticing my stomach gets tight when I stand up. That's all really good awareness. Consciously remind myself to release the stomach. That's good. But in line with what we talked about a few minutes ago, and really the energetic methodology is, when I notice something going awry, I just run the energy in the direction that I know is the proper way, proper direction. So when my shoulders come up, I just run the energy down. My stomach has come in, I run the energy out or down. Now for my step, I'm noticing my shoulders coming in and up again, in and up. So I run the energy out through my arms and shoulders, down and out, or simply out. So I notice my shoulders coming up a bit as I step, I run the energy down and perhaps out. A current of energy countering what the physical is doing. Try that a few times and see if you can see a response. First of all, seeing what you can be aware of, any tiniest little bit of tightness or pulling in or pulling up. And then can I run the energy the other way? Can I run the intentional current the other way? And notice if your body can respond. Any comments with that?
So sorry, I'm the chatty Cathy tonight, but I
Good.
like what I think I've always struggled with is how to really sit into the support leg, and so that dropping of the intention sets up that base so the kind of wobbly, toppling, top heavy feeling
Right.
gets less. I don't think it's quite gone, but it's less.
Okay. Excellent. So you're countering those physical tendencies with your intentional direction. Okay. So if there aren't any comments or questions with that, let's do the same sort of process with repulsed monkeys. Okay. So let's start with just the stationary positions. So again, there might be a tendency to lean a little bit, especially whenever we're in a one-legged stance. We'll tend to resist using that leg a lot because of lack of stamina, lack of strength. So that's where everything tends to tighten up and tighten in, and we get kind of stiff and out of alignment. So we want to hang out or sit into that back hip, and that takes, again, strength and stamina. And just as we talked about with the cloud hands, we don't want things in close to the body, because that actually is closed shape. The joints closed, the energetic flow is restricted. So the bottom arm is out. You can think of having that elbow flow forward. Still sitting. The forward hand, again, the elbow is rolling forward. So have both elbows roll forward. And again, you might feel that pulling the shoulders down, so that's good. Creating more space, and therefore more room for the energy to flow, so to speak. So that's the preparatory position for a repulsed monkey. Again, push the back of the neck out. Push the lower back out so it's virtually straight. Hang out and breathe. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Now try it on the other side. So the first thing I'm going to check is how uptight am I? How tight and up? Hang out from the string, sit into the back hip, release the abdomen, sit the shoulders, and when I roll the elbows forward, that'll help bring the shoulders down even more. Push the back of the neck out, push the back of the lower back out. Breathe. This is changing your body shape, right? It's changing, it's opening up the vertebrae, it's opening up the shoulder joints, it's working the hips, developing the strength of the legs. Just these stationary positions, the things we're working on, change your body, open your body. Yes. John, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Okay. This is weird. Catherine's cat just moved over to John's house. No, I'm just joking. Okay, so if there's no questions there, hang out. This openness. Closed. Open. Allow the belly to do the same thing. Open. Expansive. Moving into the next position. If you keep the feeling concept of this openness, then when your hand goes out and back, it won't be curtailed, it won't be shortened, it'll be in a very expansive circuit, describing a very large arc. So many of you, or all of you, have been exposed in regular class where we're talking about making the largest possible arc. Don't think about up, think about out, 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 out. That will tend to happen naturally if you have this feeling of openness, shoulder joints are open, elbows rolling forward. You'll probably find that makes the motion bigger or expansive and not coming up as much. So everything that we've done tonight, process we've done, will tend to create the same shape and movement through everything that we do. From flat foot to the ball. A quick physical thing to watch out for is what can tend to happen for a lot of people is when they go from flat foot to the ball, they'll tend to come forward a little bit. So you're keeping the weight in the back leg. In other words, you're still just hanging directly down. You're hanging out. If you're hanging out, your weight won't migrate forward at all. So try a few flat foot to the ball where you stay nice and vertical, hanging out. Your shoulder joints stay open. And you don't come up when you move your arms. Try a little bit on the other side. Take a moment to hang out, open up the body. Maybe take a couple conscious breaths where you're working the tire tube, expanding in all directions, breathing in, tracing back from all directions when you breathe out. Maybe do 2 or 3 of those conscious breaths. Sit the shoulders, open the shoulders by having the elbows away from the body, and keep that expansive feeling as you move into the next position. Hanging out the whole time, breathing into the abdomen the whole time, noticing any little tensions, any little creeping up, creeping in. Those are really good awarenesses. This is a path of awareness. Noticing the tiniest little bit of contraction, tiniest little bit of pulling in, pulling up. Those are gateways to change and gateways to development, gateways to transformation. Any comments or questions with that? Well, let's do a few steps of flowing 3 pulse monkeys. Let me know if you have any questions. Same thing, same process with brush knees. When you step back, notice any pulling in, pulling up. Totally normal, totally natural. It will happen. Happens for all of us. I notice it in myself. I'm just getting better and better at countering it, not so much by physically changing it. At first, that's what you do. Physically put everything where you know they're supposed to be. But you get better and better at changing it just by running your intentional direction, and the body responds. So when you notice things coming up and in, run the intentional energy down and perhaps outwardly. Hanging from the string, release the abdomen. Here, maybe you're coming in tight. Keep it open and expansive. Hang from the string, elbows roll forward, away from the body. Notice when the shoulders creep up, and then run the energy the other way. When you notice it coming in or coming up, just run the energy the other direction, down and or out. Any comments or questions?
Brad, could you talk about the position of the hips in repulse monkey? Mine never tend to be very square.
Okay, yes, excellent. Let's do that. Let's finish with talking about hip position, hip turning, and repulse monkey. Okay. Maybe if I'm facing this way, it'll be the same way as you. Okay. So if we start, let's start with standing on the left leg, right leg forward. Hips are square. When we go from the flat front foot to the ball, hips open to the corner, front corner. So now the hips are facing the same direction as the foot you're standing on. So if you're standing on your left leg, hips are open to the corner, same as the left foot. Hips stay open to the corner as you step back half a step with the right foot. About half a step, it's not a big step. As you drop the right heel, that swivels the hips all the way over to the right corner. Now we're going to square our hips, and that actually also corrects the front foot. By squaring the hips to the front, that'll turn the front foot will turn on the ball so the foot is straight. Quick reminder to make sure that your right knee is not traveling too much with the squaring of your hips. You want your right knee as close as possible over the right foot. So when you square the hips, they'll tend to travel the knee with the hips, and then your knee is inside your foot. So as best you can, keep your knee close to being over that foot. That requires some openness in the hips. So different people have a different range there. So try to minimize traveling of that knee. So here, standing on the right leg, hips are square. Open the hips to the corner, and the front foot comes up on the ball. Hips are to the right corner, half step behind you, dropping your left heel 45 degrees, swivels your hips to the left corner, squaring your hips, drops the left hand, pushes the right hand forward, and straightens the right foot. Flatten the foot. Now we're square. Square to opening. Of course, opens the arms. Half step back, dropping the heel. Let the weight of your heel bring your hips around to the right corner. Squaring your hips brings the arms into position and straightens the front foot. Opening, stepping back to the other corner, squaring. Opening, half step back, dropping the heel, brings the hips to the other corner, squaring, corrects the front foot, and brings the arms in front. How are we doing with that? So let's finish with a wind down. Hang out, focus into the Dantian. Mind and breath resting in the bowl of the hips. Each out breath is a releasing breath. Just take a moment to have one hand in the back if you like. Let's just do a few full torso breaths. This will take practice to get the body to open up and release to do this. Breathing in, expanding back as much as front. Breathing in, lower back opens and extends backwards, just as the belly extends forward. And when you breathe out, it retraces equally back to the center point inside your body. Try a few breaths with your hands on the sides, isolating the movement sideways, emphasizing the movement laterally. Breathing in, pushing your hands out to the sides. Breathing out, hands can fall in a little bit towards the center of the body. This is really good for cleaning out the lungs because it forces the lower lobes of the lungs to be used. And most people don't activate and access the lower lobes. They're breathing very shallow. So this is very deep and very thorough for cleansing the lungs. Now, one hand in front, one hand behind, as best you can, work all directions of the compass. Breathing in, expanding back and to the sides. Breathing out, retracing from all directions. Hands in front. Send one hand up, one hand down, equal, and switch. Now breathe in as the hands go up and down. Breathe out as they come in front here. So go at your own timing. So when you breathe in and the hands separate up and down, open up the torso like we just did. Breathe out, releasing back. Breathe in, open the entire torso. Breathe out, retracing back. Breathing in, expanding torso in all directions. Breathe out, releasing back. This will touch deep muscles in your torso and core that haven't been activated for a long, long time. And again, we'll stimulate the kidneys. And help release that stiff lower back. Good. Now just let that top hand drift down. Let's come to the Dan Chen. As best you can, breathing in, everything expands in all directions. Breathing out, retraces back. Weight through the feet. The next time you breathe out, let your hand just fall with gravity. Just fall with gravity and breathe normally. And just be with your hands and arms as they swing naturally. You're not swinging them, you're just being with them as they swing. Breathe as you hang out, weight through the feet. Be inside your hands and arms as they swing ever so slightly. And let your mind gradually subside to stillness as your arms do. Breathing the whole time, weight exiting through the feet. Coming to stillness as the hands come to stillness. Emphasize the out breath. Touch your center. Breathe in, breathe out, and release. Thank you very much, everyone. Good to see all of you, or almost all of you. Some of you, I can just see your name. Hey there. Good to see everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Okay,
night.
Great.
See you next time. So I'm thinking of doing class on Saturdays as well now.
Oh, good.
So looking at Cheryl, are you available Saturdays 3:30